for our What in the World segment. I was struck by a strange proposal this week. A top Argentine leader says his country should move the national capital from Buenos Aires in the east facing the Atlantic to a new city up in the north closer to the Pacific. This would be an immense change, akin to Brazil moving the capital to Brasilia. Now, I like Buenos Aires and I would hate to see it abandoned, but the idea that Argentina needs some shaking up is right on. A few weeks ago, we ran a report titled, How to Ruin Your Economy. In 5 easy steps, it showed how a country could turn itself into a basket case by bad decisions. The segment was about Venezuela, but Argentina is a worthy runner-up. It starts out much stronger than Venezuela. Remember, Argentina is part of the G20, the group of the 20 big economies. The average Argentine earns more than the average Indian and Chinese combined. But all these facts mask a troubling trend. Let's see how it fared on our 5-point test. First, attacking big business. The Argentine government began 2014 by forcing the country's supermarkets to fix prices for 200 products. So basically, the price of milk or flour stays the same for the consumer, even if demand goes up, inflation rises, or if the supplier has to pay more for it. It defies basic economics. Step 2, the official Statistics Bureau says prices rise by about 10% annually. But that's a total fabrication. In reality, inflation in Argentina runs around 25% a year. A basket of goods that cost $100 in January would cost $125 in December. Argentina's blatant fudging of official data has gotten so bad that the International Monetary Fund publicly warned Buenos Aires to start telling the truth or face expulsion. Now, what does hyperinflation usually do? It hurts your currency, and that's step 3. Argentines have been rushing to buy US dollars as a safer currency to park their money. In response, the government announced limits on the number of dollars you can buy. The result, a rampant black market. While $1 officially buys you 6.6 Argentine pesos, you can actually get almost double that rate on the street, about 10.8 pesos. The effect is a corrupt economy, suffering businesses, and a loss of foreign investment. Argentina is ticking off a 4th box from the Venezuelan playbook as well, subsidies. According to Merco Press, a regional news agency, Argentina's total bill on subsidies like energy for the first half of 2013 rose by 62% from the previous year. This isn't the only form of government support. According to the World Bank, Argentina is one of the world's most protectionist countries, meaning that it imposes the most restrictions on global trade, shielding its favored sectors. Now that brings us to our final category, becoming a dictatorship. Argentina is, of course, a democracy, but President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner has displayed worrying symptoms. Between her and her late husband, the Kirchners have now ruled Argentina for a decade. In recent months, Cristina Fernández has clamped down on the media, floated rumors of amending the constitution to run for a 3rd term. She's building a cult of personality.
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
Fashioning herself after Evita, the populist widow of the former President Perón, made famous on stage and screen. Argentina's attempt to mirror a failed state like Venezuela tells a larger story. Look at this map of Latin America from a great article in the Wall Street Journal this week. On the left in green, you have the countries that are facing the Pacific. Mexico, Peru, Chile, and Colombia are among the countries opening up their economies to great success. On the right in red, you see the opposite. Countries that face the Atlantic. Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela are closing their economies and resorting to populism. The countries in green are projected to grow nearly twice as fast in 2014 as the countries in red. Perhaps changing Argentina's capital to be closer to the countries in green, closer to the Pacific, is not such a bad idea after all. Now for our What in the World segment. Some startling images caught my eye this week. A shopping free-for-all at a major electronics chain, the equivalent of America's Best Buy. People making off with flat-screen TVs and all kinds of appliances at bargain basement prices. It's not the holidays yet. This is what happened when the government of Venezuela decided to play Robin Hood. The army took over the privately owned chain and slashed prices. The incident got me thinking. We often talk about best practices for economies. Perhaps there should also be a list of things to avoid. A checklist title may be How to Ruin Your Economy. This isn't just a theoretical list. Venezuela is ticking each of the boxes in practice. So let's go to rule number 1. Nationalize business. That's effectively what we saw Venezuela do this week with DACA, the electronics chain. President Nicolas Maduro claims that TVs were so expensive because the United States is trying to bring down the Venezuelan economy. It's not clear how his solution to take over the company will actually fix anything. That brings me to rule number 2, create hyperinflation. The truth is the overall price of goods has risen 54% in Venezuela this year. So if your household groceries cost $100 a week in January, they now cost $154. The ripple effect is clear. Prices go up, so eventually salaries have to go up. And in the long run, anything you produce costs more. Savings lose value. The middle class loses its standard of living, and the entire economy suffers. Rule number 3, induce a currency crisis. What does rampant inflation do? It devalues your currency. The official exchange rate is 6.3 bolivars for every greenback. In reality, the black market rate is 7 to 10 times that amount. For a country that imports 70% of its basic goods, this is a huge problem. You may remember recently that Venezuela ran out of toilet paper. Why? Well, it is now running out of a different kind of paper, the money to pay for it. Which brings me to rule number 4. Subsidize, subsidize, subsidize. If Caracas is running out of money, the government doesn't seem to care. It's been lavishing subsidies for housing, food, health care. There have been 2 recent elections, and at each one came a fresh set of promises. And remember, gas is essentially free. In fact, Venezuela not only subsidizes gas for its own people, it also gives heavily discounted oil to Cuba. All the while, it is running out of money. I could go on, but I'll just point out one more rule, number 5, which is become a dictatorship. President Nicolas Maduro won a vote this week to get what is known as decree powers, the ability to pass laws without consulting Congress. He says he needs these powers to fix the economy and tackle corruption. After all, Venezuela is ranked 181st of 189 countries for ease of doing business. It ranks 165th for transparency. It took years for Hugo Chavez to take Venezuela down to this point. Maduro seems to believe that by doubling down on those very policies, he's somehow going to get a different outcome. So on points 1 through 5, Venezuela is on a fast track to ruin. The world saw this coming under Chavez.
¡Viva la revolución socialista! ¡Viva Venezuela! ¡Viva Chavez!
We hoped for change, but in his dying days, Chavez picked a mini-me to stay the course. The only reason Venezuela has been able to survive, given this record of ruinous policies, has been its oil wealth, which has given the government the revenues that cushion it from the effects of all its disasters. The sad reality is that Venezuela is wasting the world's largest oil reserves. It could be as wealthy as Saudi Arabia or Qatar. It could easily outstrip Mexico and Brazil. Instead, it is beginning to look more and more like North Korea.